Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.
Chewbacca was like the big brother I didn't have.
Hello there. This is Dave, and I'm an original trilogy kid.
And this is Elora. I'm a prequel trilogy kid. And welcome to What Does Star Wars Mean to You? The show where we talk to all kinds of fans of Star Wars to take the hate out of the debate and look at the franchise from a certain point of view, one fan at a time.
Our guest today has turned his fandom into a mission of giving in galactic proportions. He started out designing banners at Comic-Con, including a very fortuitous banner for Star Wars' Peter Mayhew. Since then, he has become an integral contributor to several nonprofits. He is the chief story officer of Content on Call that creates content for nonprofits that don't have dedicated marketing or video resources. He's also the philanthropy director at the Peter Mayhew Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization devoted to helping children impacted by illness and disaster. But it's not just his work with the world's most favorite Wookiee that brings him here today. He's also a lifelong Star Wars fan who wore out his special edition VHS collection. Please give a warm hello there to Matthew Egan.
Hello there.
Hello.
Tell us, Matthew, are you ready to share with the world what Star Wars means to you?
I am, and the more I learn about the format of the show, the more terrified I become. So this is great. One of those things that I really probably should have listened to 2 or 3 episodes before saying yes. But yeah, no, I'm in. I'm ready.
Okay. We love to kick off with 5 at the Force. This is our kind of like 5 basic, like, let's get your Star Wars baseline, rapid fire kind of set of questions. So which Star Wars movie is your go-to favorite?
When I back in the VHS days, I think it was definitely Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as you mature as a film fan, I think in episode 3, the drop right in the beginning, the space battle. I think the only thing that was comparable to that at the time was like Gandalf falling in the 2 towers,
Sure.
and like where we really are the CG was able to go with him through the fall, and the fighter fight. I don't even think in the sequels we had like a space battle that was equivalent to that battle in episode 3. But I have to say, Empire Strikes Back, and the visual and the tone, and Star Wars kind of stepped up in the storytelling between episode 4 and episode 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. So Dave's going to roll a D6 for me.
The 2.
Yeah, we got a 2. Okay. So who is your favorite minor character?
It's funny because, Wedge Antilles.
Okay.
Wow.
I think it's a cool story. So am I allowed to tangent on the?
You can tangent.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
I'm terrible at tangents. So Dennis Lawson, who plays Wedge, was at Star Wars Celebration, and he works with a really good friend of mine, Kevin Lyle. And the Star Wars show wanted Dennis to go up on stage, and Dennis was like, "Look, like he was barely doing events, he was barely back, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Look, they're gonna pull me up on stage, and they're gonna ask me about the dilithium matrix mix, and like I don't want to be doing these geeky." Like I'm a grown man. I'm not trying to have these conversations about nerdy stuff. I don't know anything about anything, right?
Uh-huh.
And Harrison Ford.
Sure, right. Yeah, please just kill me already, right? Like that's his, yeah. So I really wanted to watch Wedge Antilles on the stage, right? So like I'm behind the scenes, but I'm a fan. And so I'm like watching all this stuff. And so I talked to the Star Wars show folks and the producer over there. And then I was like, all right, what if we let you know what the questions are in advance? And then we get them approved by you and your agent. And I'm like, just this happy little kid running back and forth.
Sure.
It's a kid. Like this was like a couple years ago, but it was. I think this was like Celebration Orlando. So 8 years. I don't know. Then they were there talking to the producer, and it was Kevin and it was Scott Bromley from the Star Wars show, who went on to produce the Jedi Temple Adventures with Ahmed Best, which was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it was called. But Scott looked him right in the face, Kevin, the agent, good friend of mine, and he says, he goes, we are Lucasfilm, right? Like, this is not, we're not the New York Times. We're not trying to like catch you in a gap. Like, no one's going to ask you about the dilithium crystal mix, whatever. Like, we're going to ask you, like, isn't it great to meet all these fans? Like, it's going to be the most underhanded pitches ever in question history. And eventually Dennis was like, okay, I'll do this. And he went on, he did the interview on stage, but it was like, how do we kind of get him comfortable, in that space. And so my belief is that I am 1% or maybe like 0.7% responsible for Dennis's comfort level for him then to be back at Wedge in episode 9. Because I feel like if we hadn't mended that bridge and got him on stage and got him comfortable. So I claim like let's call it 3%. I claim 3%.
Oh my gosh.
Like 12% is Kevin Lyle, who really did the heavy lifting. But
sure.
I was involved.
Oh my God! No, thank you for sharing that.
A little more than J.J. Abrams. Just
yeah.
If you didn't start the ball rolling, there'd be no snowball at the end of the hill.
Because it's all about comfort, right? And it's all about people and relationships. And so, Kevin had that relationship, but I think if I hadn't been so persistent, he wouldn't have gotten on the and it was out of a love for Wedge. And don't get me wrong, they might have called him and offered him a bunch of money and he would have said yes, whatever. And it would have always happened. And I could be completely wrong. But I just felt like it was one of those things where the fans benefited because we put the effort in.
Yeah.
Yes.
He had that comfort level to get on stage. So a lot of really cool stories like that happen at Comic-Con, and it's wild because it's like you might go to an event and it's completely mundane, or you might go to an event and it changes your life,
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good testament for giving our minor characters some extra love.
Absolutely. But I mean, Wedge, you've got the entire X-Wing series, you've got the Race Squadron series. I'm a big expanded universe fan. I'm gutted that Mara Jade is not, reintegrated in some way into the Disney Star Wars. We've got Thrawn, and it's like, all right, chop, like time to bring Mara back and all that sort of thing. But yeah, no, Wedge, definitely Wedge. And Corran Horn and all of the, iJedi, all the, the Rogue Squadron in general. Such great characters. And then like 20 years later, you see them in another book and they come in and it's all a big deal. And like, it's not 3 movies anymore, right? It's hundreds of books and comics and expansions and TV shows and cartoons. And so it's really cool to see those characters come back.
It's like a fully living timeline.
Yeah.
Like it just of a universe. Every moment almost is accounted for.
Right.
On that note, I'm going to flip the order of our 5 with the Force, and I'm going to ask you next, what, like, besides the movies, what is your favorite Star Wars content? It can be the TV shows, the comic books, the novels, the games, pretty much anything.
That's tough. That's really tough. I think at a different point in my life, I would have said Knights of the Old Republic, hands down.
Sure.
Because it was at a time where we weren't getting a lot of Star Wars content, and all of a sudden we had this whole new world, we had this whole new story, we had the big reveal with Revan, like everything that went along with that. And then, but the engine, the system for that was so good. And then the fact that like Knights of the Old Republic 2, which, it carries on the same, but you're not the same character, you're not the same world. I think all of that, and I love the Old Republic. They just announced today they're doing a technical beta for a Mac client. And I'm a video editor, so like all my stuff is like heavy duty Mac equipment.
Yeah.
And so to play Star Wars: The Old Republic on the Mac finally, which will be great.
That'd be nice.
But then like, I don't know. I mean, Rebels was fantastic. I'm probably more of a Rebels guy than a Clone Wars guy. That's a really difficult. I think what Jon Favreau did with The Mandalorian was very special in the timeline of both, in canon, but then also in Star Wars, the marketable product.
Right.
Because and I feel like Rogue One sprinted so that The Mandalorian could jog.
Sure.
And because Rogue One brought in so much of that, I guess I'll say Rogue One will be my official answer there. But I like the bringing in the old pilots and using that footage that they had captured in those booths. Them like, okay, we're gonna rock this. And then it was the pilots we knew given new life and given and brought back and respect in a way that was really important. and then they added on top of it, but they made it look gritty. And I feel like Rogue One had to establish that the grit mattered in order for Mandalorian to come in and kind of, and ultimately it still became a Jedi story, but it wasn't a Jedi story, right? And so it was kind of like the fringe, but not, but and the Mandalorian brings us like the best Luke and Ahsoka.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yes.
And people complained. They were like, how dare you stop talking about Mando? And I'm like, hey, y'all tangent as much as you want. What's Wednesday?
Yeah.
What's Han doing? Where's Chewie right now? Like you tangent as much as you want.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy to take breaks and explore the rest of the universe. It's great.
I know.
Come on.
I had the same reaction. I was like, did you watch the same show that I watched? What is your favorite line to quote?
Oh, that's tough. I don't know that I have a favorite line from Star. I think it's too big to have a favorite line.
That's fair. That's a good answer. I don't know if we've had that answer before.
I don't know Iron Man. And it was like, well, I don't know what you know about Iron Man, so I don't know what I could tell. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
And this was like at a pitch meeting, right, where I needed to look impressive, and I was like, he's an alcoholic. I don't know where to go. Like, I don't know what you know, so I don't know what.
Yeah. Okay, that's totally fair.
Now it's going to bother me. What's my favorite quote from Star? That's tough.
That's okay. You'll marinate on it, and then when the pod comes out, you can tweet us. Let us know.
Yeah.
In the middle of this interview, you're going to be like, this is my line.
Right.
Last with 5 with the Force, you have a charity event coming up. Chewbacca is on Kashyyyk for Life Day. You can have any other Star Wars character come. Who do you choose and why?
I mean, so if it's up to me, I'm gonna bring Mara Jade in because then she exists, right?
Sure.
So that is I'm gonna break the veil of expanding universe, and then Mara's just there, kind of going, "What do I do now? I don't fit into all this. I need backstory. Aren't I supposed to marry that guy that just turned into a Force ghost? Like, yeah,
Yes.
So it's kind of a No, that's no Mara Jade, just because then she'd exist.
I love it.
You gave me power with that question, I think, is what it was, and I abused it.
Yeah. Your godlike abilities to make a character exist.
This is your interview. We go where you want to go.
You're ridiculous just listening to the question. I love it.
Matthew, can you tell us what your first introduction to Star Wars was, and can you walk us through that experience?
I would say when I became like a daily Star Wars consumer, it was around the time of the original trilogy special editions that came out on VHS, and I had them before that, and it's entirely possible that it was like the marketing of the special editions where I had the previous VHS set, and then you get that 3-pack, and you had to watch the making of at the beginning of every VHS tape, and you had and they would go and it was all super ominous in the how proud they were in the tapes about generations seeing it for the first time, whatever, and so but you couldn't. I mean, you could sit there fast forwarding it, but it's like trying to get it in just the right spot. But that was like Power of the Force 2, where we all knew very correctly that if we preserved those figures, we would all be millionaires. And we were very alone in that, and not everybody else thought the same thing, so that they became very common and very not worth anything figures. I saw like Princess Leia on the orange card back in Power of the Force 2 was like if it had a .00, it was like, oh man, that's what you, or like the long saber Darth Vader or whatever. You see him on the shelf now for like $15, and it just like part of me dies when I see that, because we thought we were like, I've checked everything off the list. My collection is going to put my kids through college. Like we are on.
And there was so many of those figures too, which added to that kind of belief, because there was, like you said, the long saber variation. There was, I want to say Luke had a couple variations, and then also they had the early set, which was like almost a He-Man-esque.
Right.
Looking
with the big bulging pecs coming out of the Tatooine Luke thing. Yeah.
And you couldn't get them into an X-Wing or anything.
Right. Too much muscle to fly this fighter.
Yes. I had Mara Jade, And she's like one of the ones like Mara Jade, Thrawn. I thought for sure those would be something that's a big value. Nope.
Yeah.
I mean, probably better, but not like having a 12-back R2D2 that's mint.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and the Gentle Giant Mara Jade, which I think was a like San Diego exclusive at one point. I think that's worth quite a bit. I've got the Kotobukiya Mara Jade over there, and I looked that up. That it's like $375. I've got the Mara Jade from Koto, and those both are just huge, like blew up. And it's just crazy because it's not the stuff that we thought would be valuable.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the stuff we opened.
Yeah. Right.
Are you more of an open your figures guy or more of a...
I had the entire Power of the Force 2 collection, so like the old orange backs, and then it changed over to the green backs. Like I had them pinned up on my wall.
Yes.
In their peg, right? So it didn't damage the figure, but it was up on the wall, and it was pinned to the wall, and they were all lined up where each figure kind of covered the next one. It was like a wallpaper. And I thought it was the coolest thing, and I would run around, and you'd go to KB Toys and you'd never find the one. And I remember like then the Shadow of the Empire came out, and that was a whole, and it was national news that a new toy line had come out, and that like spiked hair Chewie bounty hunter in that set, and Dash Rendar, the Outright, all that stuff. And it was like, but we got new cool stuff, and so rarely did we get new stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't part of the role-playing game or the Decipher game or something.
Yeah, it was what was incredible about Shadows of the Empire was it was a whole media blitz as if there was a movie, but there was no movie.
Right.
Interesting.
At the time, I gotta admit, it felt pretty good too.
Yeah. Because it was all we had.
Yeah, exactly.
We had an itch, and it scratched it for sure.
So after you got into Star Wars, how did it impact your day-to-day life? How did you kind of like keep Star Wars in your life during your teen years, or was it something you lost track of and then came back to later?
I think so. I'm a filmmaker, and specifically, I'm a documentary filmmaker. I tell charity stories, and we primarily work with organizations that don't have like a communications team, and so maybe most of the time they don't even have a marketing director, let alone like somebody that like a skilled video person. And I don't think there's any filmmaker that doesn't have George Lucas somewhere in their inspiration list. I was a huge Kevin Smith fan. Of course, Kevin's a huge Star Wars fan, so you get kind of Star Wars through Mallrats or Chasing Amy or whatever. And so when George Lucas needed something, he invented it.
Yeah.
And that is, I think all of the new Star Wars and fighting over the acolyte and Star Wars theory and everybody at everybody's throats, it forgets the amount of innovation that came from Star Wars and from George Lucas and how figure it out. And the Mandalorian's doing that now with the volume.
Yeah.
Potentially to their detriment at times, because sometimes I think like they use the volume too much, and then you can kind of see like the rounding along the edges when it's like they rely on it a little too much, but the film, like I think I've seen a lot of comments on it, but I feel like if you're not a video editor, like maybe it doesn't rise to the top. But my grandparents helped me get a Sony PD-150 camera when I was 17, and this was like a $7,000 camera at the time.
Sure.
Adjusting for inflation, that's probably $15 million. I don't.
And if it was still mint and box, it'd be 30.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had the extra long microphone with it, so but no, so I went and I changed to Lord of the Rings professionally. I was the gaming editor for the OneRing.net under the name of Flint back then, and so I met Chris Parado, who is the director of marketing or the CMO or whatever. He works for Sideshow Collectibles, and he was my boss at the OneRing.net, and so we were both like web design guys, and I learned a ton from him. And he would whoop my ass all the time on hey, you're doing this wrong, and hey, you got he always pushed me to not cut corners and to really be professional with everything that we were building. And I'm thrilled, like he's still at Sideshow, right? So he gets to be there and help promote and all the Star Wars stuff that they're doing there. So I don't know if Sideshow still has the relationship with Weta Workshop, but I know that like for a long time they were promoting the Lord of the Rings stuff. So it was a very like working at the One Ring, you were very immersed in the love of Lord of the Rings, the love of Star Wars, the love, and they had a Oscar party for Lord of the Rings, and they did it each time one of the films was nominated, and these massive, amazing parties, and the cast and the crew would leave the Oscars and come to our parties.
Oh, wow.
So, and this was kind of like where a lot of my, teenage to adult years expectations for my life were kind of formed.
Sure.
If that's the starting base where they're forming.
Yeah.
It has been a tough, because I'm always kind of pursuing that, like, what's my next, interesting thing that we're, my first wife was standing on the sidewalk outside of the Sunset Athletic Club. And like literally my child would not have been born if this had not happened. And Richard Taylor from What a Workshop gets out of the vehicle holding 2 Oscars. And she's dressed as an elf in like a big flowing, like Arwen kind of fancy dress gown.
Oh my gosh.
And he puts his arm around her and hands her an Oscar. And so in the Weta Workshop offices out there in Wellington is a picture of her with Richard Taylor holding these Oscars. And so
Cute.
we followed them, and then we were at a party at San Diego Comic-Con, and this gentleman named Mark Hamill came to this party, and we're with the Weta Workshop guys, and here's Mark Hamill, and he was so excited to meet them.
Oh,
They were so excited to meet him.
Sure.
I was in the middle just going, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I was, right?
Where's the adult? Yeah.
Right. And there's pictures of me, like there's pictures of this meeting in the hallway of this party. And I'm standing in the background just kind of like wide-eyed and like this is amazing.
Who screwed up? How am I here?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, the mistake I've ever made was correct. And here I am.
Oh, that's awesome.
But the Lord of the Rings crew had such respect for Star Wars.
Right.
And Mark,
Yeah.
he's such a fan of practical effects. And the guy that literally was the white hand of Saruman was there, Gino. And like they got to talk, and he and Richard got to talk. It was really cool. And to my knowledge, I don't know if they'd ever met before. And so you're just like in this moment of history. And this was at a Gothic club called the Abbey in downtown San Diego. And it was the ex-Sanguine party. And every year, like a woman in a bikini with a foxtail would give you an invite. And all the actors were flirting with her. And that's how she got them all to show up to the party. It's the whole thing. And
we love a girl with a good hustle.
And every year, because I brought Weta, then I was permanently on the guest list. And so like, it's the joke of like, it's not what you know, it's who you know is so painfully true.
Yeah.
And like the Lord of the Rings stuff led me to connections. And then like, we still are good friends with John Rhys Davies and his agent, who we knew from back then. And
Sure.
he's done a bunch of stuff through the Ronald McDonald House, and the Mayhew Foundation has helped take boys to them. And so, so it's if something comes up and there's an opportunity, I have 12 or 15 people I can call. And then they also will reach out to me. So we went to the Children's Hospital of Orange County, and Amy Allen and Katie O'Brien, Amy, of course, from the prequels, and Katie O'Brien is the Imperial officer that shocks the guy. She was like the
okay,
Mandalorian. She's the one that turns that device up to 11 and fries that.
Yeah.
But she emailed me and she said, "Hey, this year Chris Bartlett wants to come out and do the hospital visit this year. So can I put you guys together?" And so it's like, you do good work and you make a lot of content. You make sure that gratitude is a huge portion of it. And then people will ask to come and participate with you. And so this year at the Children's Hospital, we might have Chris Bartlett there as C-3PO, taking pictures of the kids, and or one of his droids or whatever, because he's
wonderful.
the guy in the suit for so many of these.
Oh yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Including the bounty hunter droid that the guy from the IT crowd did the voice for in Mandalorian, the one like from the heist when they break the guy out of the prison.
Yeah.
Physically in that suit as well.
Well, that's a really great segue. Like, what are the origins of the Peter Mayhew Foundation, and how did you get involved?
So Alamo City Comic Con here in San Antonio, I want to say 2014 or 13 or something like that. It was the very first show, and you go to an event and there's a banner behind all the guests. Well, they were a brand new show and they didn't have a designer. They didn't have they didn't have the banners for the talent. And so they were hoping that the talent brought their own banners, and they didn't know what to do. And so you had like Power Rangers, and you had Richard Horvitz from Invader Zim, and you had Jim Cummings, Darkwing Duck himself, like all these people. It's crazy that we worked with all of them at that very first show, because I still see them all the time. But I started making banners, and so I'm sitting with Jim Cummings, and he's Darkwing Duck, he's Monterey Jack, he's Hondo Onaka, of course, from the Clone Wars. Love seeing that we now have that animatronic Hondo. Like it just blows my mind. Ready, fingers crossed for a live action Hondo at some point. But
I'm shocked that they still haven't done live action Hondo.
Oh yeah, no. And I mean, you'd have to make him taller, but Jim could totally do it. But it's having. I had a marketing company, a web design company, and so I had the design skills, and so it was kind of, I raised my hand and I said, "Hey, I can have one of my guys bring me a laptop. Do you want me to design banners?" And I'm not making this up. It sounds like an exaggeration, but I was taking money with one hand for autographs at Jim's table, and I was designing banners and like on the crummy convention Wi-Fi, pulling images of old cartoons.
Wow. Fun.
And then one of my guys ran and picked up the printing and brought it in. And Angie Mayhew, Peter and Angie Mayhew, was one of the ones that needed a banner. And they used that banner for years and years and years. and that was kind of my introduction to them. And I became friends with their agent and started, helping out in other places. And they had kind of off and on website help and stuff like that. So then we started helping them out with the website. And then there'd be a project helping a sick child. And, my work, I owned my company. So I had the availability to kind of say, okay, I'll do this tomorrow. I'm going to free up today so I can drive here and take this check to this family to get this surgery, or, kind of whatever the task required.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, it was about availability and flexibility and schedule. And it was about skills. And so that's, one day we were doing a project in Westwood, California, at a hospital out there. And I just invented a title. I was like, I'm the communications director for the Peter Mayhew Foundation. We help. What can we do? What resources do you need? Can we promote something? Do we need to do a fundraiser? Like, what was it? And it really was like on the fly. I just made up a title, and like, I think I might have run like a $10 set of business cards or something like that. And then
like at Kinko's.
Oh yeah.
Or like Vistaprint or something. And then it was like, but we started raising, and I think we raised like $55,000 for that first campaign. But it was like, we didn't have a structure. We didn't have like who was in charge and what, and ultimately it was like,
I totally hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. It all kind of evolved from there. And then there was always a lot of people that wanted to help, and there was always a lot of people around Peter and Angie. But then a lot of times, like, I'm kind of known as the asshole in some circles, because I'm the one that's kind of like, okay, what are the steps, y'all? Like, what are we actually?
Yes.
What needs to happen for this to proceed? And so we would kind of break down, and then a lot of the times, everybody loves like the ideation step. But it's like, okay, like who's gonna help with this? And then a lot of times it was like I was the one left holding my hand and do the thing. And we had a lot of help over the years, and a lot of people would come out to help pack coins and to help in different pieces. But a lot of it was just kind of like consistency of information and cohesion stuff. And so a lot of times it was me and Angie Mayhew, and and she would tell me, I want to help this family, and then I would contact the family and figure out what they need, and then we build the website to do the fundraiser. We'd get the coin design. We worked with some amazing artists. Peter's own daughter Katie did several pieces of art for us. Richard Gonzalez from Venezuela, he's an amazing artist. All of the stuff the Mayhew Foundation has done has just been gorgeous, and that's made promoting it really, really easy.
Yeah. No, you're speaking my language. I come from a very extensive nonprofit background, and I'm just sitting here like, yep, consistency, who shows up, who's not got an ego, it's like all of that is.
They're volunteers, and you don't want to be the asshole.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we can have 15 meetings talking about what we want to do,
or we can do it.
Have one meeting doing it, and so and also kind of like, okay, we can all talk about the right way to do this, but who's going to do it? Okay, do it your way, and because and so it's always kind of who has the availability? And a lot of people, they work a 9 to 5, so they just can't
Yeah.
get away from their tasks to, when we leave. So we're doing a truck trip on November 11th.
Mm-hmm.
And the toys have been donated by Holocron Toys, as well as by a bunch of different fans that have sent in toys. We get boxes of toys all the time.
Nice.
There's a place called Good 360 where you can buy like 95% off toys. So we got a bunch of stuff from Hasbro and
Nice.
stuff like that. And we're leaving on November 11th, and we're going to be gone until like the 22nd. And not everybody has that availability to be off like that, especially where a lot of people have seasonal jobs that are very busy around the holidays, getting ready for a holiday break. And so for us to be able to kind of just not schedule anything, we have succeeded in this because we had the flexibility of schedule and stuff. So
what's been the most rewarding part of combining your love of Star Wars with your passion for charity?
The recent stories kind of rise to the top in that respect. So the Peter Mayhew Foundation was founded in 2011. I came on board in 2014. And then last year we created an organization that we kind of call it like the sister or spin-off of the Peter Mayhew Foundation, but it's called Content on Call.
Okay.
And that's my day job. So the services that we do for the Peter Mayhew Foundation, we do through Content on Call. That's my full-time job. That's where my paycheck comes from. So we help nonprofits to get their message out there in order to achieve their goals better. And so, just like you guys doing this podcast, video, media, podcasting, social media, all of these tools are so valuable and have such an amazing reach. Right. And so, it's a matter of enabling organizations to have these tools. I like to, and anytime I have one of those moments where I go, hey, wow, I had no idea this was like this, then it's like, okay, what media can I create? What story can I tell? Who is the storyteller? Who is the person that experienced this? And how do we get that out into the world so that people can learn from it and the root of the problem can be solved, not the top level talking point, up there. And I feel like there are a lot of real solutions. And so for me, to answer your question in a very long way, when I feel like somebody has consumed something that I've created and I've broadened their horizons and I've demystified the other to where it's now facts that they can consume and we can work from a real framework, then real change can happen. And I used to say I was just a filmmaker. And I used to say it was like, no, I make videos for people who don't have the budget to make videos. Yeah. But it's really like we're educators.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so it's I got a chance to talk to my grandmother last night about this. And my great grandmother used to receive Meals on Wheels. And Meals on Wheels is one of our clients that we make videos for. We made a video for their gala last year. And their gala is coming up in November. So we're filming with them right now. And there's a Jamaican guy who is the subject. He's the delivery driver. And then we're going to go interview with the elderly folks who receive the Meals on Wheels meals. And he said that when he was a kid, he had his head up his ass and he was around his grandmother and she had a stroke and he wasn't there for her the way he wanted to be. Now she's gone and he helps other people's grandmas who maybe aren't there to provide for them. There's like 60 meals a day
to buddy.
Through Meals on Wheels. And they paired me up with this guy and I was like, his story is amazing.
Yeah.
Because that's such an easy, like I could tell you that in 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Some of these stories are so complex.
Yeah.
But he saw an opportunity to give back in a way that, and it's all for his grandma, but it's service to someone else's grandma. And able to call my own grandmother and tell her about that. She goes, yeah, we donated to Meals on Wheels because we watched your video. And like, that's even just in my own family where like they're inspired by, and I think we all have the ability to move the needle for causes in our lives by just talking to each other. Yeah. And everyone's like, oh, be an influencer and influence 1 million people. But like, why don't you influence 5 people? Right.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Have small conversations with your friends, with your family, your neighbors, whatever.
What I'm also kind of hearing is how you kind of take stories and present them from a different point of view to steal from Star Wars. But this sense of, look, there's this wall of media, whether it's news or fiction or whatever it is, there's this wall of media that we all experience, that we're all getting kind of our knowledge from. And what I find fascinating about what you do is you go in there, you look at it, and you go, no, there's a different angle here. There's something that's not revealed. There's something that people aren't seeing that you then kind of uncover in your content.
I think the kind of Last Jedi equivalent would be kind of that revelation of the arms manufacturers are selling to both sides, right?
Oh,
And so
yeah.
this
Yes.
war against good and evil, and there's somebody profiting. It doesn't care who's fighting as long as somebody's
Yeah, it
fighting.
doesn't matter.
You were talking about these great stories that you've been telling to try to kind of limit this dehumanizing, or this kind of these characters that are painted maybe for political gain, that don't really paint the reality of the situation. And it made me think of Andor. Like, all the men floating in those prisons were probably in very similar situations. They were either desperate or lost, or, even in Cassian's case, just wrong place, wrong time. Like, it was just, I think, to kind of tie it back to Star Wars, I think that's, and I've said this on the pod before, but I think that's such an important thing that science fiction and fiction in general gives us, which is these lessons in how do these characters get to where they are, and what does that reflect of our society, and like, how can we do better? And I love that you've taken that passion and you're doing just that.
Yeah.
And that comes from Angie Mayhew, because if you look at like the Red Cross or something, like the Red Cross wants you to talk about the Red Cross, wants you to fundraise for the Red Cross,
right?
And we don't have any friends, right? But for the Peter Mayhew Foundation, Angie was always like, "Hey, let's raise money for Make-A-Wish here." And very origins. So Albin Johnson, who founded the 501st Legion, he also founded the Galactic Academy and the Walking Wounded programs within the 501st and the costuming communities. His daughter passed away from brain cancer, Katie, and so R2KT, the pink R2, was created in memory of his daughter. And
I didn't know
you want
that
to talk about an
story.
inspiring person. This is somebody who was able to take the lowest point in anyone's life,
right,
and turn it into. I don't think I would be exaggerating if I said that the 501st has raised over $1 million for Make-A-Wish, and many other organizations and stuff that they've helped. Like, it is completely amazing what came from that. And Peter and Angie were very good friends with Albin, and they would go home each Sunday night to read the updates on Katie's blog and see how she was doing with her treatment. And they helped raise money for her Make-A-Wish trip. So the 501st, with their relationship with Lucasfilm at the time, and then later their relationship with Disney, they were not allowed to like hold money. And so the Mayhew Foundation was created to be a fundraising vehicle for Star Wars fans, so that you tell us what you're passionate about, you tell us what family you're trying to help, and we will leverage Peter's reach. And we sell coins, we sell patches, we sell stickers, and all these things that are to raise money to we're building kits for foster kids right now, or families that with medical bills, or to pay a co-payment to do a surgery, or a number of things. And then, we try to take supplies, and we reach a lot of what I do. And speaking of communications director, was like just reaching out to brands and say, "Hey, please send us, backup batteries for the hurricane zone." Right? We helped so many. We had generators so that they could charge their phones, or babysitter, which was the iPad.
Right.
We listen, and when there's a need, we help. And that's to switch fandoms a little bit. There's a line, I can't name my favorite Star Wars line, but Gundam Seed. If I have the power to help someone, I need to put it to good use. And I think that is where a lot of the Content on Call. Sadly, Angie Mayhew had passed away before Content on Call was created, but she was one of my best friends, and we would text and argue until morning about what we wanted to do with this, and we'd be on the phone for 3 hours at a time, and she was amazing, and it was just like, okay, what can we do? All right, we always start there, and let's help this person. So then, all right, we need to go do fundraising, or we need to launch a coin, or we need to do, let's do a GoFundMe, whatever it is. She never met a problem that she wouldn't fundraise for, that she wouldn't kind of put their name on the line.
Right.
And Peter would always say, we'd ask him, "Hey, there's this child that we could help, or there's this child that we could help." And Peter would say, "Let's help both." and Peter was very slow spoken and very, but he just, why are we choosing,
Yeah.
do both. And
Let's do both.
but I think, Peter was a medical giant, and I think he felt like the other, and I think that's where a lot of his passion for people with disabilities comes from, and for children especially, because I think when you're a kid, I think it's very easy to feel like the outsider, like the maybe you might feel like baggage in your family because there's stress going on with parents, and you're in the way, or you're you don't want to be a bother, or any of those situations. And so I think anybody that ever felt like the other, that was Peter's type of person. And then they say about Angie Mayhew, she never met a stray that she wouldn't take in, and I say that as one of those strays. So
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a relatively bizarre question, I think. And one of the things I've always, I think I've grown to really appreciate and be so impressed by is how much emotion, and I guess I'll go love, emotion, caring comes through that Chewbacca disguise, or not disguise, but costume. Yeah. And how much what Chewie is thinking just by reading his eyes, by what little expression they can show on his face.
That's the brilliance of the character, right? Is that because he's not,
and the portrayal of the character,
right?
Oh yeah.
Did he have an amazing presence just when you would see him in person?
Yeah. So Peter had your back, and just like Chewie, and when they were filming, I think The Force Awakens, filming halted because Harrison Ford broke his foot on the Millennium Falcon ramp.
Yeah.
And so Peter was in town. He had come to my house for a barbecue, and I remember making a joke about, like, well, you know how the Falcon is, like, can't be shocked that bucket of bolts somebody twisted their ankles. And I didn't even know Peter was listening. He was like sitting behind me talking to some people, and I just hear, "Hey." And like, because that's his baby. Like
yes.
You were one, it was just Peter in a costume. Like, he is Chewbacca.
Yeah.
That I've heard from so many people that, like, Chewbacca was like the big brother I didn't have. And so they Carrie Jones, who's Kersantin in Book of Boba Fett, when he was a kid, I was able to get Carrie and Angie Mayhew on a call together. Book of Boba Fett came out after Peter had passed away, but when Carrie was a kid, he used to run around with the back of a cereal box cut out of Chewbacca on his face, with 2 holes cut out.
Oh.
So, like, when we talked to him, he was 8 years old again, because he was going, were there magnets in Peter's mask? Because there's all this stuff in the mask.
Yeah.
It makes the eyebrows move and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It was like, what did Peter have? And it was like, it was a hood, and it had and 2 eye holes, right? And they would paint his eyes black, and that was it, right?
Oh, that's hilarious.
But Peter had to communicate his eyes, those beautiful blue eyes. Regal Robot did a really cool life-sized Chewbacca bust, and it was like 2 weeks before Peter passed away, but they were able to bring it, and Peter was able to, like, look himself in the eyes. And everyone in the family was talking about how they nailed the eyes, and they talked about, like, every little gold, because in the forehead and in the eyebrows, it kind of transitions from the Chewbacca brown, to some gold and some black and stuff, and like, Peter was going through every little detail with Tom Spina from Regal. It was amazing, and we just bumped into him, right? And so, again, being out there, right? You won't have opportunities in the house. You have to go out into the world, and 100% how this happened is that Laurel and I were walking around, and I saw a guy combing his Wookiee, and I made the joke. I was like, "Hey, I see you're combing your Wookiee," and then we started talking. And I told him who I was, and it was like, "Well, Peter's just finished the signing. Like, if you want to bring that bust," and Tom was like, "Are you kidding? Of course! Like, let's go."
Yeah,
like, I hadn't seen it, and so it was. I believe at the time, it was the Peter Mayhew signature edition that they were selling. So, like, they had that agreement between the agents and stuff.
Sure.
But Peter hadn't actually seen one in person, and he wasn't able to sign them before he passed away. And so Mark Hamill stepped up and sent a letter to everyone that purchased one of those, so that the family could still, get the deal and everything with the autograph.
Yes.
So you signed the actual busts. And then everybody that bought the bust got a letter from Mark Hamill that he.
Nice.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing.
but again, like if I hadn't bumped into Tom, he wouldn't have,
Yeah.
and then Peter would have never seen that, and he could have never gotten that firsthand feedback. Imagine, Joey that does a lot of the Chewbacca masks that we have on display at the conventions. We're talking about one hair at a time, or like little tufts of hair at a time that they're. So imagine you're sitting there and you're hand making these Chewbacca busts at Regal Robot, and that window had closed where Peter never got a chance to see it. And I just like I didn't talk to Peter on the phone a lot. We talked in person. He wasn't a big like cell phone speaker, but he played on his iPad. But he wasn't talking on the phone a ton. And I was talking to Angie, and I didn't know that she had me on speakerphone. And this was like 3 days before Peter died. And I'm going to tell this story without crying. I'm going to try. But Peter said, I was like, hey, how was Star Wars Celebration? How did everything go? It seemed like a great time. We were able to thank the fans. It was really every single one of those is magical. And he said, I got to see my friends, and he meant the fans that he's met and known for years and years and years.
Yeah.
He Albin, who he's got a deep relationship with, and he meant the cast. Because a lot of these people they see each other at conventions and stuff, and but he meant the cast as much as he meant the fans.
Yeah.
Literally, it sounds like a line, but I would never lie to you. The last thing Peter ever said to me is, I was kicking ass and taking names. And it was literally the longest phone conversation we ever had. But he was gone 3 days after that. And it's just, and I had a similar moment with Angie Mayhew, where she had a postponement in a surgery, and she passed away from complications due to the surgery, but she was home for like 3 days. And so we drove up to Fort Worth from San Antonio. We were able to sit with her and have just really, and you never know that a conversation is going to be the last conversation.
No.
It was just wonderful. And, it was just a very, you never know what you say something to somebody, and that could be the last thing you ever say to them. Right. So it's like, be kind. But we just had this really beautiful moment, and she was nervous and going into the surgery and stuff, but we got to spend time together, and I'm just so blessed and grateful for that moment to have those conversations, because it's just like, I don't know what the conversation we'd had before that. I don't know what, like there's always something going on, and if there's any kind of like, drama or conflict or whatever, it's like, you don't want to have been like the last conversation ever. But we were able to go to the house and not even on the phone, like it was face to face, and it was really nice. But she was the driver for Content on Call, because she said, help as many organizations as you can. And so rather than like making one organization that only cares about itself, the Mayhew Foundation always helped as many other organizations as it could, and Content on Call helps other organizations in a different way. But we're following her example.
That's amazing. I mean, it's such a beautiful story. It's hard to go, what are the three elements that make Star Wars to you? It's really, we tend to talk about more. Pardon?
Because it's.
I do want to hear your answer though.
It's hope. I mean, it is that good people can turn bad situations for the better.
Yep.
And that you have to decide if you're one of those people or not. You get to decide if you're a hero or not. And that's not like, go dedicate your life to charity or whatever, but be a good listener, be a good friend, be a good father.
Influence 5 people.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, a rebellion built on hope. And I think there's a lot of greed in the world. There's a lot of pick me, look at me, give me the spotlight, so I think just every opportunity to not be that way, and to help somebody, and it's hard work at the end of the day, right? Like it's a lot of labor. It's a lot of carrying boxes and long drives in trucks and all, like it's a lot of work, but it's about hope, and that the difficulties are worth it, and that tomorrow will be better. And that's maybe, I know you asked for 3, but that's the theme.
Yeah. Well, it could be like real estate too. It's location.
Absolutely.
Hope.
Absolutely. I lost some good investment properties on Alderaan, all that.
Well, yeah.
And it was oceanfront.
Oh God.
Was, I mean, very briefly, everything was oceanfront. So
um, I love that you have a little bit of dark humor in this very emotional
You have
moment.
to.
I do love that. So this is our final question for you, and you took us on quite an amazing journey tonight about your work with charities, the way I choose to be a better person and wake up each day trying to do that. After this whole discussion, can you kind of sum up what does Star Wars mean to you?
That's a very complicated question right now, and I'm disappointed in Star Wars right now, and not Disney Star Wars, but I think there's a lot of Star Wars has to be this, or this, or I don't want it,
Yeah.
I saw a tweet the other day from somebody that just posted how much they enjoyed the end of Outlaws, and people were in the comments telling her how wrong she was that she liked the thing, and it's I think we have and not everybody, but it's a side effect of social media that everything is salacious and only the way the algorithm works is the thing that gets the most attention gets put at the top, and so the post where everyone's arguing is the thing that's going to get the most, it'll be at the top. And then people know that they want to be in, and so, Kathleen Kennedy, one of my absolute favorite Star Wars stories about Jon Favreau comes from the opportunity I got because Kathy Kennedy was just this amazing, generous person that was like, hey, how about I introduce you to so-and-so, right? And I had met her at, I think this was Celebration of Chicago. So it was Peter's last convention, and might have been Orlando. I'm not 100% sure. And this was like right as Mandalorian was coming out, and it hadn't aired yet. And we have challenge coins and stuff that we take and we give out, and thank you coins and things. I was backstage. I was with Erin Kellyman at she was on stage for the Star Wars show, and I'm working on her team, and so I was just hanging out backstage. And Kathy Kennedy comes out, and I'm like, I don't bother Kathy Kennedy, right? Like she's Star Wars, leave her alone. So I walked up to her and I said, hey, I just wanted to say thank you. And this convention allows the Peter Mayhew Foundation to say thank you to so many people. And so here's our challenge coin. I'd like you to have this and just know that having all these Star Wars fans in one place is just so amazing. And she looks at the coin and I'm expecting her to go, thank you. And then turn to the side and break eye contact and be like, why is this guy thinking he can talk to me? And she goes, this is gorgeous. Have you, do you mind if I introduce you to Jon Favreau?
Oh my God. Do you mind?
And like, are you going to be here on Sunday? And it's like, President Star Wars, I will crawl across glass to do anything.
I am now.
Right. And she goes, Jon Favreau is a huge challenge coin collector. Can you give this to him? And I'm like, oh, well, you keep that one. I'll another one. And I was like, and I had talked to the person that was there with her. And I was like, was she serious? Yeah. And she's like, yeah, she's serious. And so on Sunday before one of the panels, they took us into this room and it was all the 501st members that had been stormtroopers in The Mandalorian. So I got to take a big group picture with him backstage. And then I got to meet him after that. And I had gone and curated the best challenge coin collection of Star Wars coins. I had one with Thrawn's Star Destroyer. I had the Chimera and the dragon little sign on. I had Pride coins. I had you name it. I think I gave him 9 coins total. And we talked about kind of what his passion was for that. But as you can, I realize the podcast folks can't see, but behind me I've got Iron Man statues and stuff. I'm a huge Jon Favreau fan from Iron Man, from the Chef movie, from the Chef show, and obviously from Mandalorian and everything that he's done with Star Wars. But it's just to me, Kathy Kennedy was this amazing person that I was so excited to meet, who she herself hired Jon Favreau, and part of her wanting to introduce me to him was that my gift was a cool thing to do for him.
Yeah.
So she was literally like, hey, I'm going to send you to Favreau because he'll love this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was helping
you
her
are her
celebrate
gift to
him.
Favreau.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what are the odds? That's insane, right?
No, it's amazing.
And then we did meet him in at Celebration Anaheim, which was Angie's last celebration.
Yeah.
And I was able to tell him. So I gave him that stack of coins, and he gave me his executive producer coin from The Mandalorian.
Oh my God.
And at the time in Mandoa, it said, "This is the way," before we had ever heard it on the show. So I had a spoiler, and I didn't even know. And it sits on like a little stand in my case downstairs.
Oh, sure it does. Yeah.
It goes in a safe because I don't trust my dog sitters not to hide it to mess with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then when we saw him in Anaheim, I was like, "Hey, I just want you to know, like, thank you so much for that challenge coin. It's on like a stand. It's like I call it precious." And he goes, "Oh," and he like pats his pocket. He goes, "Here's the coin from the Book of Boba Fett." And so I have 2 executive producer coins from Jon Favreau because Kathy Kennedy is so freaking cool. Okay,
Yeah.
Like anybody that says bad things about like we wouldn't have The Mandalorian if and okay, not everything was everybody's cup of tea, but I was looking at today before The Acolyte came out. Andor was the least viewed Star Wars show.
Why? It's so good. Sorry, I just dropped my phone on the ground.
Right? Like, how are you gonna, like only The Acolyte is lower than Andor, and everybody can't wait for season 2 of Andor, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I enjoyed The Acolyte. It wasn't a perfect show, but I enjoyed it, and but having the meltdown over Coyote-Mundi's age when the only reference of it was on a Topps card. Like Topps cards used to say that Luke and Leia had different birth dates.
Yeah.
They weren't originally. You can't use a Topps
Someone
card.
call up Padme.
Right. Like, it's like in actual like film, we never knew Coyote-Mundi's age because it didn't matter. Like it was the dumbest detail. People went to war. There are people's block lists that are full because they were arguing over Coyote-Mundi's age. And so like
it's wild.
I'm
Who has the time?
That too. Too many people apparently have the time.
And I say that as somebody who interviews Star Wars fans.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
That is a low
4 hours a month.
Yeah. I mean that with all due respect because I work at a Star Wars charity, but it's I'll trigger some people by quoting Rose Tycho to eventually answer your question of my favorite Star Wars quote. And I'll probably get this wrong, but it's not about fighting against what you hate, it's about protecting what you love.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather hear what you like than hear what you hate.
Yep.
And and tell me your favorite character because it's probably on my list somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And I love your guys' premise as far as the prequels versus the original trilogy. And like you guys are both coming out of different generations because Star Wars means different things to different people. And that's okay.
Yeah.
There was a time there during The Acolyte that was really beautiful where the Yord and the Jackie jams and all the
Yes.
I think I've got I was one of the people that they sent the Yord Horde sticker to from Star Wars from but it was really cool. And it was just like and then when episode 5 came out and the fights were so good, we all agreed for like 5 minutes.
Yes.
It had some really cool stuff.
Quamir's one of the coolest characters I think they've ever written.
Totally. He floated down.
Yep.
It made no sound.
Yep.
And then the light comes up and the way that the cortosis causes the blades to explode. Like
I want an entire series that's just his story. I thought he was fabulous. Everything from the actor choice to the writing to the styling of that, like everything about him, I was intrigued. Yeah.
Well, and the helmet too. Oh man.
Oh, yeah.
And the switch up. He's such a great actor. And to be able to kind of be this nerdy sidekick to then like, oh, it was him, it was Agatha all along. And,
it was Agatha all along. How many fandoms can we smash into this one? I love it so much.
How many people can we offend tonight? Yes.
Every time I thought of him from The Good Place, I was like, there's no way that's the actor from The Good Place. It's not him.
He was brilliant in that too, though. That was a hard role.
Brilliant.
He's got the way that like Michael Sylvester, the way that like Witchblade was drawn for women is how he is pulled out of reality. I am like, you know, I don't necessarily swing that way, but that is a gorgeous man.
It is. As someone who does swing that way, I will say. Yes, totally. He was very pretty.
Well, it's really amazing because this whole conversation makes me think of a line, and it's not a Star Wars line, which I think is probably pretty perfect because it's a Lord of the Rings line.
Perfect.
And it all goes back to One Ring, which is when you step outside your door, be careful on the road because you never know where it might take you. Am I getting it close to right?
There's a very important distinction in that line. If you don't kick your feet, you never know where you're going to get swept off to. And that to me is kind of a metaphor for like why I quit streaming, because I wasn't kicking my feet. I wasn't going out on new adventures.
Yes.
Right. And that kind of became the motto of I'm going on an adventure. Right. Yeah. And, you know, I made friends with agents. I made friends with convention promoters and just, you know, how can I help you so that I'm in? Right. And it's just about being in as many rooms as you can be. And you never know, you know, when and 3 might be the wrong rooms, you know, or you just make great friends. God forbid we just make great friends. Right. But that 4th room, Kathy Kennedy might walk in.
And no, that 5 row likes challenge coins.
Yeah.
Right. And happen to have a pocket full of challenge coins. Right.
Yeah.
I love that. 5 row if you have coins. Yeah.
Matthew, where can people find you?
So the Peter Mayhew Foundation is at the Wookiee Roars on all of your favorite social channels. And then the work we're doing at Content on Call is at Content on Call on all of your favorite social channels. And then on Instagram is probably where I post the most about whatever I happen to be working on. And my personal Instagram is Egan, Egan film.
All right.
Excellent. And all these links will be in the podcast notes so people can go right down and click towards them.
This was so much fun. Let's do this every week.
Yeah.
Wait, yes, let's. Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners, and that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.